Welcome to the DRM Deliverance and Restoration Ministry. I am Rachael Wyse-Mason, here to continue the series with you of Open Windows. So this is the 5th session, guys. Thank you so much for holding out and sticking with this. We have 2 more to go after this one. But if in case this is your first, we have 4 sessions before. Our first one was the window opener, which dealt with faithfulness. We then have the window shutter, which dealt with pride. After which we did the window that is always open, and then we did the window that can shut. So today we are continuing almost to the end, guys, and I'm hoping that it has been a blessing to you as it has been a blessing to me. So in this session, our title is "It's Not a Door." A window, as we had mentioned before, a window represents an opportunity. But unlike a door, which tends to be very direct, which tends to be a greater opening, a window tends to be a bit smaller, which means that it can't be missed. So the thing about windows is that because they're smaller, they're easy to overlook. Doors tend to be those big opportunities, those things that you have to pray and fast about. Lord, should I take this new job? Or Lord, should I move to this country? Should I go to this school, this university? Should I marry this particular person? So doors tend to be those big opportunities that you really have to spend some deep time in prayer and fast, making sure that you hear the word of God before you go forward, to make sure that you don't step out of alignment of His will. However, windows, on the other hand, tend to be a bit smaller, which means that they can be easily overlooked by us if we're not too careful. So they tend to be small tasks, people that we meet, people that we interact with. It could just be the right timing of when you meet someone, or the right timing of when you went somewhere, and opportunities just popped out of coincidence. So they are these really small acts, but they are small acts that can propel you into bigger things. In other words, you may start off with a window, but there may be doors or bigger opportunities behind your window. But sometimes the only way that you can get to those doors is through the window. So we want to make sure that we don't miss windows that may actually have doors behind them, and we don't want to miss out on our doors just because we bypassed the window because we didn't recognize it. So I can think of a million different things that has happened to myself in our marriage ministry wise, that appeared to be so small and then turned out to be such a big opportunity. So I'm going to talk about some other personal stuff after, but there is one that stood out to me the most. Deryck and I were supposed to go to a service in Cedros, and for some reason we had gotten the time wrong. We thought that the service was starting maybe, I think, 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. in Cedros, so we got up early, like 3 a.m., got dressed, left home, head down there, to then realize after we reached in Cedros that the service was starting in the evening at 7 p.m. So we are ready in Cedros, dressed and everything, and we knew at that time that we could not remain until 7 and then get back home till after that. It would have been like way too much. So in taking directions, we ended up on this particular location, and I'm like, Deryck, we came down here for church, we are going to some church. So we want to find a church and we're going to go somewhere. And we actually had parked up in front of a church, and they was like, "Where are we going to go?" I was like, "We're going to go to that church." That church was Cedar's Open Bible. So we walked in, and I'm not sure how, but someone had recognized maybe his voice or something like that in just a simple greeting. And it happened to be a birthday or anniversary service for the pastor. And Deryck had brought a prophetic word to the pastor while we were there. This happened maybe about 6 years ago, and we have built such a strong relationship. That pastor, Gerald and Romity Smith, they have their 2 daughters. They are gems in our lives right now. And they had given us room to do fundraising. They had given us room to minister their church, to conduct deliverance. And we have such an excellent relationship with them. And I thought about, it was just a small act of being there and saying, we are not leaving here without going somewhere. So we're going to pick a church and just go to that church, just to make sure that the time we spent wasn't wasted. And that small act of just going into that church brought so much opportunities of relationships, of friendships that are irreplaceable. So Pastor Gerald and Romity Smith. so that took us there. But I want to give you guys, in line of my testimony that I've been sharing with you, and I wish that I could give you guys more details, like specifics and stuff like that, but some of these things have not been completed. They're still in the making. And then when it deals with certain aspects of your life, you do want to make sure that those aspects are kept protected, in a sense, or what they can call your name. So as we say that when we had talked about the session on windows that can shut, I had given you guys a testimony about doing a course and signing up for a course that I did not have the prerequisite for, I didn't have the qualifications for, and I got through with it. And I talked about window openers and window shutters, talking about wanting to leave a particular project that I was involved with because I wasn't too pleased with how my resources versus the output that I could bring. And I talked about the issue that I had when we had talked about window shutters, and we talked about pride. I had talked about how I was so hurt by feeling left out of a project that it almost had brought me to the point where I would have walked away. And if it was not for praying and the spirit of humility to come upon me, that God allowed that to bring some opportunities into my life. So in my first session, when I talked about I was determined to leave, I was not joking. I said, okay, I find that my skill sets were restricting me to only particular projects alone I could have applied for and gotten through with, because that's the training that I have. So I'm like, okay, I need to expand my training. So I did a couple courses. Now, it may seem like, that's a small thing. For me, it was small, yes, but doing a course is small, but after doing a PhD, I had vowed to myself that I was never, after spending so many years studying, that I was not going to be in a hurry to get back to school. But I realized that I needed to change. So I started doing little courses. I do like a 3-month course here, a 2-month course here. And then I had mentioned in the last session when we had talked about timing, about the window that can shut, that I had to apply to this special course that I didn't have a prerequisite for. So this course came about again because the individual who I felt bypassed by in the beginning, I was so wrong when I think about it. But the person who had asked me to assist them with their project at the end, they had sent me the notice and say, okay, I think you should apply for this. This is a great opportunity. And I was like, no, I don't have the qualifications. And I eventually did apply and I got through. Now, at first the course was very intimidating because it was a regional course, which meant you had to be selected from persons within, I think it was 14 different states, so different Caribbean countries, nations, 14. And they were like top of the line. They were business owners. I remember I told you guys that this is, of course, a person with a strong background in business, which I did not have. I have a science background. And they were managers and they were entrepreneurs and they were, like, to me, like the cream of the crop when it came to this field. So I felt very intimidated in the beginning, and I'm like, but no, I came to learn. By some a miracle, I had qualified for this course, so I am not going to just let it go. It may seem like, it's just another course. I'm not going to treat this as another course. I'm going to work at this and I'm going to try to do my best to learn. So I, in class, would make sure I'm on time. I would ask questions. I would do my assignments and make sure, we had to work in groups. I would make sure that I did my part. If it is that I didn't hear my group was mentioning, like, when we're going to meet, when we're going to get ideas together, I'll send a message. Hi guys, can we meet for this particular time? Just to get the ball rolling. So I was just determined that even though it could just be a simple course, I was going to maximize this opportunity that I got, that even though I feel small, even though I don't meet the criteria the way the others do, I am still going to try to do my best and make sure that I do well as I can in this course. So I poured everything, and it was such, the course itself opens my mind to a lot of things that I didn't have a perspective on. It changed my mindset, and that mindset change even changed the way that I approach ministry and the way I approach the DRM and the way that we organize things and our goals and the way we set out. It had just changed my entire perspective, and I was so grateful for it. So I was just doing all my assignments, answering questions, and so doing that gained the attention of persons who were running the course. Now, I did have to overcome some shortcomings. I'm sure you guys have realized my speech impediment with stammering at times, and there were a lot of presentations, and at first I held back, and then in the last few I was like, no, I can't back out. I'm going to try my best and I'm going to volunteer. And I tried to overcome my speech impediment, and it was still there, but I tried to make up for it with exuberance. So I was like really excited and presenting with that thrill and that excitement in my voice and everything. And they were like, wow, they didn't even talk about and I was so surprised because my group even said, we want you to present again. I said, but guys, I didn't pronounce, I do stammer. They're like, no, you were great. We want you to do again. So it was really amazing for me being able to try to conquer shortcomings and weaknesses just through a course. And with that course, I actually got the prize for the best students. And that was amazing for me because as I told you guys, I felt like when I went in as the underdog. But the excitement that I approached it, the learning, the doing my part in the assignments and pushing myself to overcome, that they took notice, and I got the award for the best student called the Golden Girl Award. And I won a prize, an iPad. I won an iPad. So, well, I could say Deryck won an iPad. he really worked hard with me when supporting me through that journey. Now, I just did a course, and the build up from that is still revealing itself. So I'll tell you guys like where we've reached now. So I'll tell you guys where we've reached now. So after the course, so during the course, I had expressed desires of, it is such a mind opener that I wish it was something that I had here locally, because with the knowledge that I've learned in just 3 months, we could revolutionize and change the way that we approach a lot of things that we do. And one of the instructors heard me and he approached me and he was like, how would you feel about if we tried to introduce this locally for you? And I'm like, oh my God, I was gonna ask you if you guys would consider doing it locally here. And I got in contact with someone who got in contact with someone who got in contact with someone, and we started working on trying to get it done here locally in Trinidad. And it had reached to the point where agreements were made, and they were planning to train persons to administer and teach the course locally. Now, I was very excited because, like I told you guys, because I did the course, I was able to join a committee, able to help them to redesign some of the things that they were planning, and not really to give some insights into what they were doing that I think would have been a boost to what they already had. And they were working on that in that corner, and then we working on this corner with it. And the opportunity came across that, okay, we're gonna train persons. And when I heard the cost to train persons, whoa. I now appreciate the fact that when I first applied, I got through with a scholarship, and why it was a big deal that it was a scholarship, because it was extremely, now when I say extremely expensive, I'm talking about like a couple salaries. Well, this is like a courts, when you go courts and you lay out the whole kit, it wasn't cheap. And it still hasn't started as yet. And I was like, God, no, this opportunity. I said, God, look at the doors. I said, first I did the course, I won the award, I got invited to be a party committee, we restructuring certain things, they're making plans for us to do it locally, and now this opportunity come for today. I plan, the people I connected are training, and I don't even have the money to do the training. I'm like, God, no, Lord. And like, God, you have to make sense. I talked to Deryck, he was like, could we had a chance? I prayed, I called around, I tried to find different things. I mean, different scholarships or different funding to try to work a finger with that I could get through, and it all fell through. I am not giving up. I said, God, I have to be in there, even if I sneak in. So I'm like, okay, last resort, I'm going to call the persons who are coordinating the course and ask them if I can join for free or a reduced price at this call. One of you two. And I called, and the thing is that, with working and stuff like that, I had a really good relationship with some of them, and I called when I had a really close relationship with, and I said, okay, this may sound crazy, I'm just asking if there's any chance that you would, I said, I can't miss it. I can't even fathom the thought of, we working this hard to bring to this point, and I'm not even involved in that final step. I have to be involved. And he said, I can't give you an answer now. Let me, and I'm not even in a place where I can talk, because I'm not even in my country. Can I call you back in a couple weeks? And I was like, okay, no problem. Once you call me back, that would be great. So I was not too, with the answers. At least he didn't say no flat out. But he is kind. When you meet someone who's kind, so I know he will consider my feelings. And even if it was a flat out no, he went straight to me right away. But I was like, okay, like seriously, a couple weeks praying. I said, God, I know I have to get through this. And they called and they said, we decided that we're not going to charge you at all. You're just going to assist us with a couple of things, but we're not going to charge you. We say, we talked to me like, we can't charge you. We can't charge you. And I was like, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the consideration. And I'm like, can I scream a little bit? He was like, what? Like, can I scream? He's like, sure, like, ah! I'm like, thank you, Jesus, for opening this door that was behind this window that I didn't see, that I was gonna give up on, and I wasn't gonna bother. And I kept thinking back, you were not even going to apply. And look at how, by recognizing and just trying, even though you didn't even know it's gonna get through in a work, you still tried. And by trying it, it seemed like something small, and look at the big things that are happening behind it. So that's just my experience with that so far, guys, and I have some more to tell you guys about this in our next session. So the Bible speaks a lot about when it comes to these opportunities. And I was really hoping that by this time there was one opportunity. So this is like the third avenue working through this 3-month course. There's a third avenue that was coming through it, but I haven't received a confirmation as yet. But it's an opportunity for further growth. And you could be really amazed about how small things make big impacts in your life. I wasn't going to talk about it here, but this just came to my heart. I was thinking about in 2006 when my house had burned. I had lost everything except for literally the clothes I had on my back. I had lost everything in that fire. And funny enough, that morning in leaving, those times they didn't have Bibles on phones and stuff like that yet. Smartphones, everything were out as yet. So you still had to carry a physical Bible, and I carried it to, I think, Bible study or something before. And running out the house the morning at the fire, I was like, oh my God, my bag is so heavy, the Bible. I'm like, no, I'm too late. I'm gonna go with the Bible. So I had the clothes on my back and the Bible. God makes sure and preserved His word. I love that. Because that Bible helped me a lot when it comes to ministry with youth, youth ministry. And I had reached a point where it was a couple months after the fire. And I told myself, I heard about a mission trip to St. Vincent, and I was like, okay, I need to spend, I couldn't go for the entire full trip, I couldn't afford it. So I decided to do half a trip. And I just went for a few days. And I said I just needed to get my mind off my own issues and just submerge myself while I'm helping someone else. That was my therapy. Let me forget my issues and just help somebody else. Because when your house burns, it is so much complication with moving and getting every single thing from spoons to furniture to sneakers to computers. It was just a lot. I just needed to just get away and just take focus on myself. And going to that missionary trip is where I connected with my hubby. Deryck and I, we knew each other, but we weren't friends, and we became friends in that trip. But there was a connection made while we were there that we knew was that connection was different, but we were just friends. And God just took that opportunity and just blew it up. And there's so many ways that when we do small things that they end up with large results, and the Bible speaks thoroughly about that. It has the good and it has the bad. So, I mean, the Bible starts off with a man and a woman eating a fruit people. And to this day, it's like all of us in living hell. Well, we're not, but you know what I mean. Thank God to Jesus, we are not living in hell. God is just sick. But the issues just from a fruit. And that's in Genesis 3. And then I remember in Galatians 5, the Apostle Paul was warning the Galatians in Galatians 5:7, where he says, ye run well. Who did hinder you that ye shall not obey the truth? This persuasion cometh not of him that calleth you. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Just a little bit. So just a little bit of corruption, a little bit of sin could create so much open doors into our lives, give the enemy so much room to operate that can cause us to go into bondage. And then on the other side, there's the good. Zechariah 4:10, everyone know this one, for it says, for who shall despise the day of small things? Or other versions, apart from King James, will have small beginnings. And it says in Deuteronomy 32, which I love, how should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000s to flight? Matthew 25:20, this dealt with where we had talked about our first session concerning the window opener. And we were talking about the faithfulness. That came from the servant with the master who had left his 3 servants 5, 2, and 1 talent. And the one with the 5, if you go to verse 25:20, it says, and so he had received 5 talents and brought another 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said to him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. So, many times you will see that small acts, big results. And the biggest of them is Jesus Christ. And in Romans 5:19, it says, for as one man disobedience, many were made sinners. So by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. So Christ's act that was done 2,000 years ago, that one, those couple hours spent being persecuted, going on the cross, dying for our sins, those hours spent hell and the grave being resurrected, has revolutionized how our world operates and give us an opportunity to be one with God. And that is through one man's act. I think about stories in the Bible, and I love relating everything done to biblical stories because they really make us understand what God is looking for. The Bible is like that manual, that real guidance that teaches us what He is looking for as we are going through life. And my first one is the story of David and Goliath in Samuel 17. And this is amazing because David was already anointed to be king in Samuel 16. So verse 17 is 17:17. We could start with, and Jesse said to David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp by thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheese into the captain of the 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take thy pledge. So David, anointed to be king, was given an errand by his father to go deliver bread and cheese. So now some of us, after our anointing to be king, you can't tell me nothing. I walking around like I can't mash ants. But his humility, that from the time he got anointed, he went back to his sheep. And his father asked him to run an errand to deliver bread and cheese, and David went to deliver bread and cheese. And in his delivery is where he had encountered the issue of the Philistines that were challenging the camp and the army of Israel. And you all know the story of David, where David had where Saul and they had offered up a prize to those who would have tried to kill Goliath, and David accepted. It was supposed to be wealth, marrying one of his daughters, and David went and conquered Goliath with how many stones, guys? He picked up how many? He picked up 5 smooth stones and only needed 1 to kill Goliath. And that changed David's life. Could you imagine David going back to his father to report on how things happened and telling his dad, well, I went to drop off the bread and cheese and to see how brother and they were doing, and I ended up slaying the giant, winning the battle for Israel, chopping off the giant's head. I'm now going to be marrying the king's daughter, and now we don't have to pay taxes and we have wealth for life. Could you imagine, from just that small act of being obedient to his father, being humble, that David managed to change his entire life, not just his life, Israel's life when he became king, and the lineage through which Jesus Christ came through. Naaman and his servant. We had talked about the story of Naaman before when it came to pride. And the story of Naaman is in 2 Kings 5. And we have spoken about this before, where Naaman went with his whole company, and he went to try to get himself healed. And he went to the prophet Elisha. And he came with all his entourage, a letter from the king. So Naaman came packing. Naaman came with his crew. He did not come quiet, humble by himself. He came with his entourage. And it says in 2 Kings 5:10, and Elisha sent a messenger unto him. And we talked about Elijah didn't even come out of his house. Elijah sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth and went away and said, behold, I thought he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hands over the place and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the rivers of Israel? So the rivers were too small. May I not wash in them and be clean? Can I go to something bigger? So he turned and went away in rage. And his servant came near and said unto him, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldn't thou have done it? How much rather then when he said to thee, wash and be clean? Why is such a small act an issue? Why if it's something big you will jump at it? Why if it's a door you will go through, but because it's a window you will ignore it? And then he went down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Again, sometimes we could just ignore because they're small. We think that they're not worthwhile, things that can be missed, and therefore miss the opportunity for blessing. The boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes in John 6:5. And it says, when Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw a great company came unto him, he said unto Philip, whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Jesus, I don't like to roll with Jesus in those days, Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, and every one of them may take a little. So that means we could buy this amount of bread and every man get a pinch. Nobody get no more. This like communion bread passing around here if we have to buy this bread. And and one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, There's a lad here which hath 5 bad loaves and 2 small fishes. But what are they among so many? It was small. What are you going to do with this compared to all these thousands who have to eat? But I liked him because he still brought it. He didn't tell the little boy, go to little food, go to little lunch. What we going to do with that? To feed all these people. Andrew could have bypassed that little boy's lunch and be like, I'm not even going to offer this out to Jesus. This is an insult to the Lord concerning how much food we need and how much people need to eat. And Jesus said, make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, and the men sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples. And the disciples to them that were set down. And likewise of the fish, as many as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, and that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together, and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten, and this was given to the lad. So the young boy offered just his little, and it was able in the hand of the Lord to be much. And that's what we have to recognize when we are looking at these windows. They may appear small, but in the Lord's hand, they can be much. So don't overlook small giftings, small talents, small people, small opportunities. There's some persons I know who, if they're given the opportunity for a job, and it's not the job but they would like immediately, but they're not working, that because it's not a job that they want immediately, will not even take it. And sometimes I get confused by that, because I'm like, but you don't know if by taking this small job that will open opportunities for you to get the job that you do want. You have already dismissed this opportunity because it's a window and it's not a door. Sometimes when it is like for this small job, it's not what you get, but it's what you make it. And so don't be afraid that if you have a small job, to use it to reinvent yourself. You could reinvent the job, get innovative ideas, think of ways of which you can build on it and add to it, and make yourself invaluable to wherever you are, and therefore open rooms for promotion so that your small job eventually becomes something big. I had a conversation with someone who recently, after a long period of unemployment, got a job, and he did a number of courses, and the job had nothing to do with the courses or what he had planned to get involved in. But he said, I can find ways of which I can take the courses that I learned and try to integrate it into the job and blend the job so that it becomes part of what I want to get to and make myself an asset. And I love having conversations with people like that, where we try to go beyond the boundaries and go beyond the windows. Even though it's small, we knock it down, we widen it, and we take a window and we create doors. I just thinking about like our ministry, of how our ministry came about. And some persons would get the impression that it was some big door we walked through, and there was this big booming voice that ordained us from the beginning. And it wasn't that. It was someone asking for prayer, and this situation was serious. I called Deryck, and I'm like, Deryck, okay, call all your guy friends who could pray. And that was like Pastor Gavin, Pastor Kevin, David, Maurice David, no relation. Um, and a couple of others, and we went down to the hospital. We prayed for the person, and they're like, hey, I know somebody else who need prayer, and we drove there to that person, like, hey, I need somebody. And the companionship of doing deliverance together, that stayed. And we didn't do anything much after. We were with a church. The church asked for they had a situation where somebody needed serious deliverance that took us months of deliverance, and they would accompany us sometimes, and just helping that person out. We started having persons requesting deliverance weekly. And in the beginning, it was 3 days a week, 3 nights doing deliverance, and we realized it wasn't practical, and we reduced it to 2. And that brought us into, God telling us and calling us for after a year of functioning, that God prophesied unto us about the destiny that He called us for. And He's going to bring us land, and we're going to have our own place, a deliverance center where people come and be healed. And and there's so much that God had done with us just responding to someone needing prayer. It wasn't anything big. And the thing is, you have to realize, and it's something that I want to stress to persons, you cannot keep, if it is, unless you are already occupied, unless you're already busy. Why turn down small opportunities if you don't have another option, or you don't have anything else? What task in church are you turning down because you think it's too small, whether it's clean or prepping or whatever it is? What task in church are you turning down because it may not be the kind of ministry that you want to do? As much as I'm in deliverance now, my ministry started off with choir for 15 years, being on the worship team, being in planning committees, girls brigade. They were small before they got us here in front cameras, but they were small. And but what they brought in, what they taught, is what we ride on and what we feed on now. So sometimes we turn down small opportunities. Sometimes you go in church and you have to tidy up and you have to clean up, and sometimes we're here and we clean up here. So nothing, we try not to make any task too small. And the thing is that once you're out there, you are moving, you are doing things, but even if it's not what you want, you are still exposing yourself to persons, exposing yourself to places where bigger opportunities could come in. There are many persons who will deny because it's not the door. You would reject the opportunity, and then sometimes it's like rejecting it is almost as if you expect the opportunity to come and meet you in your house. It must come to your doorstep, and therefore it takes longer and it delays where you're supposed to be. So I think about it. Would Naaman have been healed if he stayed at home? Would the little boy have gotten the opportunity for more food if he did not offer the little he had? Would David have fought Goliath if he wasn't obedient to his father? The only person who don't have an excuse to go out there was Joseph. Joseph was in jail, but where are you gonna go? But at least he came out his cell and took the opportunity to do something small to minister. So get yourselves out there. Expose yourself. Again, the window may be smaller, it may be indirect, but it's still a pathway to take you to where God will have you to be. So I want to encourage you, take that window. And it may be a stepping stone. It may be that opening that you need to get where God will have you to be. Don't disregard, don't push it down, don't reject it just because it's not exactly what you want. So guys, thank you so much for joining me in this session. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave your comments, and we'll be right back with my last session, which deals with climb on in. And that one, I'll be joined with Prophet Deryck Mason will be joining me for that one. So we are going to have some fun with that one. So guys, have a blessed week. Take care. All the best.